Hi everyone, how are you doing? My name is Felicia Scalzetti, and I am a crowd fellow representing the Ordinary People Society and the Alabama Election Protection Network. And I'm going to be giving y'all updates on local redistricting and what's been happening since the last time we talked. So right now we're focused on two areas in particular, the city of Auburn and the city of Tuscaloosa. We're going to ignore the fact that they're rivals for the moment. So in the city of Auburn, there are 8 wards, and the city of Auburn has changed to be far more diverse. The current population is about a 37% non-white. And yet on the city council side, there's only 1 out of 8 wards that is currently a majority minority district. So community members, the NAACP, League of Women Voters, Hometown Organizing Project, and other groups and concerned citizens have come together. They've drawn a community map that has 2 majority minority districts, and they've presented this map to the city of Auburn. They have talked about it favorably. Multiple citizens who were not involved in the original map drawing process, but after seeing the options, are very favorable towards this community map that they feel represents them better. The city has dragged its feet, pushed back a little bit. The city attorney has hired Dorman Walker as a consultant on this redistricting project. This is a concern because Dorman Walker was the counsel for the statewide reapportionment, and he has been involved in redistricting for the last 10 plus years, including having a relationship and contact with Thomas Hoffeller, who's kind of considered the father of modern day gerrymandering. This all sounds pretty in the weeds, but the short of it is that after a little bit of community pushback, Auburn essentially called in the big guns, which is kind of surprising because everything had been rather amicable up to that point. When this issue was brought up at a city council hearing, the mayor actually accused one of the residents in engaging in character assassination for bringing up the issues with Mr. Walker's connections to people who have explicitly racially gerrymandered in the past, who have been quoted as saying gerrymandering is the only legalized form of vote stealing. Thomas Hoffeller is not a great character to be associated with, and it's been concerning residents. So the lack of the cooling of relations is really concerning, considering that I'm very proud of how this group has conducted themselves and how they were able to come together in a short time and advocate for their community. In Tuscaloosa, we have a similar situation where there is another community group that has actually drawn their own map back in August, well before the redistricting process began, and then they actually edited their maps once new census data came out. So they've been on this. They've been on it for a minute. They've been heavily involved. And right before Christmas, so on the 21st, they got the agenda for that meeting, and suddenly redistricting was on it, and they thought that maps were going to be passed after having been told that Tuscaloosa hadn't started redistricting yet, that there wasn't any movement on that process at all, and then just bam, trying to get these thrown in before the holidays when nobody's looking. So that effort was defeated, but the fact that that's how they started is worrying at best. In addition to those 2 particular localities, we're also concerned about prison gerrymandering writ large. There have been, in Alabama, you have an option if you are a city, a municipality, or a county to remove incarcerated people from your counts and redistrict with the remaining population left, which is the only fair way that we have available to us right now to avoid counting people where they cannot vote and artificially inflating district numbers. This is a serious concern because, number one, Alabama has the 5th highest incarceration rate in the world, and the majority of the people incarcerated are Black. So we have a disproportionate number of marginalized people, Black people, Indigenous people behind bars, and then their bodies are being used to augment a district count when they can't vote in that race or in those seats. If they are registered to vote, their permanent address is likely somewhere else. People do not usually use jail cells as permanent addresses. So that is an ongoing concern. It's one that has seemed to fall on deaf ears so far. A lot of people don't seem to be aware of this issue, even though it's had quite a few articles written about it all the way back to 2011, 2010. With the Prison Policy Institute sending out notices to multiple counties in Alabama, informing them that they had a prison gerrymandering problem. So that's something that we're monitoring and trying to keep an eye on. And as redistricting progresses, hopefully we can have more community involvement and more community say in how this process is determined. I think I named some challenges there, but knowing when redistricting is happening in a local municipality has been difficult, and we're just coming off of the holiday season. Omicron is now raging through Alabama, so even though people are technically back in the office, they might be out sick. Critical people who might know what the status of plans to redistrict or not might be out. We might see city council meetings canceled. In smaller areas, sometimes they only have one meeting a month or two meetings a month, so that can significantly delay things too. So I think safety concerns are probably number one. Information gathering is difficult as always, both in Auburn and Tuscaloosa that I mentioned earlier. The reason that we were able to respond quickly and be aware of what was happening was because we had people in local communities who were checking city council agendas. Now, if you don't have somebody watching that closely, it can be very easy to just miss this and not even realize that it's happened. So that's definitely an ongoing challenge. This week is decidedly a little more on the negative side, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm very proud of the groups that have come together both in Tuscaloosa and Auburn and elsewhere to advocate for their community. I think that's a sign of a healthy community and a robust political process, and I think that that's an overall good. And yet the response to community pushback has been troubling at best. The dismissiveness, a lot of time in these two particular council hearings, the attitude seemed to be that asking questions was bothering them, that bringing these issues up was an irritant, and I don't think that's how you should see your community members. There's a lot of things about this process, about parliamentarian processes, that are very in the weeds, and even if you explain this process to people, they're not going to get it the first time. And if they ask you to repeat yourself, don't assume malintent when it's just simply a complicated process and your own constituents are asking you for clarification. I think there's unfortunately a sense of combative environment or trying to win something. Like this is about what's best for our communities as a whole. This isn't about getting one up on somebody else. As always, please, if you have the ability to do so, pick up the phone and call your city council, call your county commissioner, find out whether or not they've redistricted already. If they haven't, reach out to a crowd fellow or your local NAACP chapter, League of Women Voters, to Alabama Election Protection Network to get involved in those local efforts. The areas where we've seen the best community involvement have been places where people were just initially kind of keeping tabs on things and were able to relay that to others. And as always, if you want to learn how to draw your own map or have other questions about this process, please feel free to reach out. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining the crowd. Please stay tuned for further updates in the future, and I hope to see you all next time.